Welcome to this edition of Global Talks, today with a special focus on creativity. I'm Malin Persson. Our discussion today is broadcasted from a place with a special focus on creativity, the offices of Film Invest, where we are back again. We will today listen to Henrik Zetterberg and Pia Sandvik from RISE. And also welcome to my dear colleague Jan Edshage, who will be supporting us with the questions you might have attending remotely. And you can send us questions when you now follow us digitally. If you scroll down, you will find a field where you can post any questions or comments you might have, and Jan will make sure that we have them here. So welcome all of you attending remotely. As you know, our global talks provide insight into interesting topics and is put together by the Global Business Gate project, which, as all of you know by now, I hope, is an energizing meeting place in the heart of Gothenburg. In the future, we will also have a physical meeting place on a new peninsula. But today we have this, a virtual hub for individuals and organizations who want to learn from each other in the context of global business. So welcome also for you who are our future tenants. Our first speaker today is Henrik Zetterberg, and Henrik will share his thoughts and insights from a year plus during the pandemic. And most of you know Henrik already. Henrik is a professor in neurochemistry at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, also the University College of London, UK, and also a clinical chemist at Sahlgrenska University Hospital in Gothenburg. And I'm following, he has a good curriculum vitae, and he is head of the Department of Psychiatry and Neurochemistry at the University of Gothenburg and leads the UK DRI Fluid Biomarker Laboratory at UCL. Since 2021, which is this year, he is a key member of the Hong Kong Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases. His main research focus and clinical interest are fluid biomarkers for brain diseases, Alzheimer's disease in particular. He has published more than 1,400 scientific articles and received numerous awards. And I must say, he is also a columnist in the local daily paper here in Gothenburg, which makes him a very well-known individual to many of us. So welcome, Henrik.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction. That is one part I'm almost the most proud of, my column every fifth week in the Gothenburg Post. Yeah. I say it to international friends, I call it almost like the Washington Post, but they don't believe it, and it's true. It's not true. So no, but this has been a special year. I work together with around 100 people, if one counts the London team, the small Hong Kong team, and the Gothenburg team, on developing better diagnostic tests for these brain diseases. And it's very exciting and interesting, and it has been, the last few years have been very intense. And through the pandemic, I've seen two different effects of this virus. So, I mean, in Gothenburg, we have maintained openness as good as we have been able to do it. The hospital has remained open. The hospital lab has had to be open. In London, we had this complete lockdown. And that was a scary thing to see. I couldn't go there anymore. People stayed home. The lab was closed for 3 months, fully closed. And the lab members were left in apartments, some of them in central London, some of them didn't have family in London, and at least one lab member had to escape back to her home in Sofia in Bulgaria, because she started to feel unwell, mentally unwell. So she escaped during the lockdown and managed to get back home to her parents, breaking some rules, but I mean, it was important for her. It's been an exciting year. It's been interesting to lead these groups during the pandemic and trying to find ways of maintaining this feeling that you're part of a team, you are doing something important, you have to move on. And of course, many of the digital tools were useful in that sense, but it was not easy, and I can't wait for this to be over, and then perhaps cherry pick some of the good things that came with this.
Yeah. Did you have any? Did you use any of the tools, the digital tools, before this?
No, not at all. I mean, I use them reluctantly. Occasionally we had these meetings with some guests calling in. There was always a bit fuzz around that, and I also felt like, okay, calling into a physical meeting, that's challenging, and it was difficult to get this type of group feeling. But now we have gotten better at it, and I think I've learned that this will of course be useful for the future, and combining, actually doing some of the some meetings virtually will be very useful to keep it, but we need to get back to meet in person also, I think.
And in your field of responsibility, you have a very global network. But during the pandemic, do you have a lot of colleagues also locally, so you have actually met? Or have everyone been remote? Or?
It has been, I mean, the Gothenburg team has been able to meet, but of course we couldn't have the big group meetings anymore. So then we had to move into the virtual platforms also locally. But in the lab, I really loved it. The university in Gothenburg made this decision that if you need to be present, you are allowed to be present as long as you respect the recommendations. And since we are a laboratory making or creating assays, lab bench work is important, and that was possible to maintain, but of course with more distancing and less group meetings. I think if it hadn't been that practical, the work, of course we might have switched more completely to remote work. And then the challenges with maintaining the group dynamics and the feeling of creativity and a good pace forward, that could have been lost. I think that would have been even more important to try to maintain through the digital tools. Globally, our group has almost gotten more accessible. But then what has happened is that we have much more meetings with our US collaborators. The workday in Sweden extends into the night, which I think many have experienced. And then the Hong Kong lab, of course, has a completely different time zone, which is very hard to accommodate in regular work hours. So I feel a bit exhausted, I have to say.
So you more or less work 24/7?
I think we work much more now than before the pandemic. And I do not know if it's good. I think we should be a little bit careful here. But it has opened possibilities, and we have gotten access to meet people we didn't meet regularly before. But of course, some meetings might have been unnecessary also. So it's this balance.
So how would you judge? Your area of research is so important to all of us, actually. And have you been able to deliver results in the same pace as you would have a normal year?
Yeah. So we have even increased our pace, which is, but then it is like this. If one takes a global view on this, research on neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease has slowed down from a clinical point of view, because patients have not been allowed in. These slow diseases, where of course the patients and family members, they have had to stay home. But there are big biobanks from studies where samples already had been collected, and data along with those samples had also been collected. And since globally many labs closed and our Gothenburg lab remained open, we received samples we would never have gotten our hands on before. So we could use that, but that was good for us, but not good for global research. And I wonder what the backlash will be next year and the year after. And some clinical trials have had a gap where medication has not been possible to continue to give, or where data collection from the patients getting active treatment or placebo has been slowed down. But again, some new digital tools have been implemented so that patients have been able to report remotely regarding their symptoms, and cognitive tests that have been digital have been invented during this pandemic. So a lot of things have happened, I think. So I think we should do our very best to pick the cherries here and make sure to use those things that were good. My fear is that some people have gotten quite powerful. The regulators, some naysayers have also gotten extremely good tools to stop things, and one can always blame this virus, and so we have to be very vigilant, I think, as a field. Now I'm talking about the medical research field as a whole, to not to get stuck in this very restrictive and careful, and so yeah, I think we need to get vaccinated and then move on as much as possible as before, but using the good things that came from this.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll come back to those thoughts, particular thoughts and conclusions on what to bring on in the new normal, whatever that is. Thank you, Henrik, and we'll come back to that. And now I'm so happy to introduce Pia Sandvik. Pia is, as you know, the CEO of RISE, which is the Research Institutes of Sweden. Pia is born in Ludvika and holds a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University in Linköping. Pia is a PhD and docent in quality control technology, and has previously also been the president of Luleå University of Technology and the CEO of Länsförsäkringar in Jämtland. Currently, Pia is the board chairman of the Royal Institute of Technology, KTH, and a board member of Almi Företagspartner, as well as a board member in Prevas, which is a Swedish limited liability technology company. And also a colleague of mine in the Division 11 Education and Research Policy in the and thus a member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences. So welcome, Pia, joining us from Stockholm after a full day of board meetings and other important meetings. Pia, tell us, this year for you and for RISE, how has it been?
It has been an amazing year in many ways, but also a tough year. And I think I would really start to just look at what has happened in the world, because I think we were before the pandemic, we were facing a lot of challenges. Overall, we had the Agenda 2030 with the SDGs that we wanted to solve. And I would say that during the pandemic, it has been emphasized even more. And the need for solving these challenges has accelerated, and there has been so many meetings in order to see how can we ramp up digitalization, how can we ramp up green transition, and also skill conversion, but also new issues like having a resilient society, because the pandemic has really shown that we have weaknesses. And it's interesting to see how important creativity and new forms to meet in order to solve these grand challenges has really opened up new possibilities, I would say. And of course, this cross-functional collaboration that we have as a strong belief is one important way to solve it, together with research and innovation and creativity. And RISE, as you know, we are a research institute, and we are situated in 30 places in Sweden. So we are all around Sweden. We have some sites in Norway, in France, and of course we are working globally. But if I would say and we don't have a geographic organization at all. So we have been a traveling organization. I was traveling like 3 to 4 days a week before the pandemic, and from the 6th of March, last year, I've been traveling once in August, when things started last August, when things started to be a little bit better. That was the only time when management team of RISE met. And 2020 was also another special year for RISE, because in 2019, we had a large process of reorganizing the whole of RISE, because we had a long process of merging a lot of research organizations research institutes in Sweden into what is now RISE. So in 2018, in late autumn, we decided that we have to do something now because we need to get more of critical mass and get different competences together that has been coming from different research organizations into RISE. So we started that in 2019. So the 1st of January 2020, we started a new organization.
Wow.
And we have also recruited all the leaders for this organization. So we had like 200 new leaders for this new organization, and we had new teams. So, yet today, we have teams that haven't met in real life since the first, never in the new organization. So, and that is very, very special. And these teams are, as I said, they are not all situated, for example, in Gothenburg or in Stockholm or in Örnsköldsvik. They can be, some of the members can be situated in Örnsköldsvik, while others are situated in Stockholm and some in Sundsvall, for example. So that has been a very special situation for us. And we can also see that when we have asked our employees, what about team spirit? How is it with the team spirit in your team? And they say, team spirit, we have never met. The only way that these teams have met for almost 1.5 years now is in a remote situation. Because 70% of 70% of all our employees has been working remote.
Okay.
We have only had people in the labs where you have to be in order to sort of fulfill your work. So we actually closed down RISE from the mid-March last year. So it has been a very, very special situation. But it's also interesting to see, because in some sense, I would say that the agility, the flexibility, and the creativity has increased during this time. Because there has been new ways of meeting all over RISE. We have, for example, had this, we call them kaffeslumpen, where you have random coffee with somebody. You put up on, say that I'm interested to meet somebody within RISE, and then you say for a 15 minutes fika, Swedish fika, and then you get random with somebody. So you have met people that you probably would never have met before. And the way of meeting remote with using Teams and Zooms and having different type of workshops, and from learning lessons of how do you sort of, if you always work from home and you have your workplace at your home, how do you get it to feel like a workplace? You put on your shoes, you go for 5 minutes walk, you come back home again, you put on your working shoes, and then you go to your place at home that is your working place. So there has been a lot of sharing on how to try to sort of cope with the situation. And we also started to have meetings where all the managers within RISE 200 people met every week in the beginning to get informed of what is happening, how do we change the way we are working, but also to get experiences from one leader to another. How am I taking care of the situation? How am I being a good leader, and so forth. And I was actually from the beginning, it was I think for the first 4 or 5 months, I was giving a 3 to 4 time minutes short video every day to all the employees within RISE to tell them about what's happening, how are we coping with the situation, all the new missions that we got regarding to protective equipment, because we were really fast in trying to also support society in the crisis that was really in the very, very problematic situation in the beginning when we didn't have any face masks. Everybody was screaming for this type of protective equipment.
And you were part of supporting society in that, you say, as well?
Yes, we did. And we actually said, that was also interesting to see how fast, I don't think none of us would have said that we also supported school and healthcare with two new digital platforms in order to take care of loneliness regarding healthcare, but also for school, for support to teachers. We set up those digital platforms within 3 weeks.
But I think that's amazing, and if I just listen to what you're saying, I also hear that you were up and running in the not new normal, but in the unnormal situation pretty fast.
Yeah.
So how did you? Because in many organizations I've seen a quite long phase of vacuum, of a nothing, of just being desperate on what are we supposed to do now. But you were up and running quite fast. How was it all you, or how did you handle that? How did you come to think of that?
What we did from the beginning, you sort of you had to understand what is really happening. And we followed, I remember from the beginning, I think all of the top management team watched television at 2:00 to see what's happening today.
Yeah.
Because we within a week, I think we put up a crisis team that was meeting every day to see, do we need to change the rules in order to know what we should communicate to the whole organization. But quite fast, since we had to support these new managers. I mean, they had a new team. Many of them were new as managers overall, or having a new team that they were managers for. So we really fast also started to see how can we support these managers so that they can really fulfill their role in this new situation. So we put up a platform, an internal platform also for support on how do you lead your team in distance? How do you set up meetings in a digital form? We fast started to use Teams, and we also had these sharing experiences, teams where managers met and was sharing, how do I solve this situation? And managers, they had so many different ways to do it, but they shared it. So we were really, we had to do it because we had a totally new organization. So if we just would have let it go, I think it would not have been good. But at the same time, we also had a lot of trust towards all the researchers, all the employees in RISE, that they can really cope with the situation, together with a lot of trust also to our managers to solve the situation. So, but we really had to do it, I would say. And we also put an honor in that we are an organization that say that we are innovative and we are flexible, and with research as a base, we really try to solve the challenges that we sort of face. So we sort of also said to each other that if we are not meeting this crisis in a good way for ourselves and for society, how can we then say that we are an innovative organization?
Wonderful. And you said before that you feel that you've been even more creative when it comes to ways of working than you would have been otherwise. And the same question as I asked Henrik before, when it comes to your deliveries in research projects, have you been able to deliver to the planned expectations, or where are you?
Yeah, I would say that we have, for one exception, because we were of course also affected from what customers were actually, how much they used our services, and that was not that much research based. But some of them actually closed down, so they didn't come to use our labs. So regarding the financial results, that's not our main mission. But anyway, we didn't manage to get the financial results that we were expected to do for last year. But on all other goals, we actually performed better than we've ever done before. The customers were more satisfied than they were before. We had more recognition as being an innovation partner more than we had before. We were doing more regarding our sustainable work. We had a better knowledge of our brand, since RISE is quite a new brand compared to before. And we also had a lot of different discussions, and we were also having a good research field where RISE was really recognized, I would say, and were given a lot of recognition for the work that we did during the pandemic. So we also got more research resources for the coming 4 years. And we also did a lot of work towards companies, but also towards the politicians, or how we could support small, medium companies, research organizations in different types of programs in order to cope with the situation. So I think our activity and the results we did last year was better than ever.
Fantastic. So we have actually 2 good examples of research being able to deliver even more during a very troublesome year.
I am actually, when you say this, Pia, I am also surprised when looking at the output. But then I get this scary feeling, when will the backlash come?
Yeah.
That is, and I think we will see a downturn in research on neurodegenerative diseases, which is our research focus next year or for a couple of years, because of all the delays and all the problems that will eventually show up. But perhaps I am just a bit worried without any. But
I think I can really support you, Henrik, in your worries, because I think that I'm a long distance runner. And if you know that you have a goal, and even though you've been running a marathon, and if somebody said when you're sort of 500 meters from the goal, and then somebody says you have to run 2 kilometers more, you would probably say, I can't do it. And I think this is something also that has been happening during this time, that we have sort of mobilized, both as an organization, as individuals, the whole society, in order to sort of solve the things that has been coming up. But I think that people you are tired, and you can't really mobilize that much of creativity and enthusiasm over a long time period, I would say. You have to get into something new normal. So I think there will be a backlash. And you can also see that people are tired, and you have been working more intensive than I would say that you have ever done before, especially if you're working on a remote, because you don't take breaks, you work longer hours, you have short lunch breaks. So I really think that we have to be very careful when we go back to the new normal. So I totally share your worries.
Then running is good.
Running is good.
I was thinking about one thing also, because a summer in my London lab would have involved having 2, 3, 4 students coming in. And at least in London now, the recommendation, it's not a recommendation, I think it's a regulation. Don't accept people into the lab who are not, we still have a rota, we need to sign up for time slots to get into the lab. And these people, they are still emailing, and we say, no, not this year. And they are 17, 18, 19 years of age, which is then this defining time in life when an opportunity could lead to something which transforms your plans and what you want to do. And that I am also, but of course one shouldn't be too worried about it, but if it would continue now, it has to, I really hope that everything will work now, and that the vaccinations will make the virus go away, and that no new mutations will pop up that suddenly escape the immune response from the virus. I really hope that we will see that during autumn we can start to have open universities, and that people can come as guests and meet people and get to know people, hang around with people. Of course, young people are better at the digital tools, but I still think this is, at least if you do research which is practical.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're saying that, because now we will listen to a student, And as many of you know, Global Business Gate, we love students. We invite students to develop and challenge us. And we have since long a cooperation with the International Youth Think Tank, through which we reach out to students from different parts of the world. And today we have invited 2 students at a distance. So we have Philippine Dutayu and Ergis Projak to help us and to share their thoughts on creativity during the pandemic. And both Philippine and Ergis are engaged as fellows in the International Youth Think Tank, where creative thinking and process have a predominant place. So we will start by listening to Philippine, who is studying political science and sustainable development in Rennes. And Philippine has a clear ambition to engage in democracy issues, ecology, and feminism. So let us first listen to Philippine.
Hello, I'm Philippine. I'm a 22-year-old French student studying political science and sustainable development. And for long, I did not consider myself a creative person. And that is because I did not have a pertinent definition of creativity, because it's so complex to define. Is it about creating something, or can it be about imagining something? Is it an individual act, or can it be collective? Is it just about creating something that's never been created before, or can it be something that is new to you only? Well, to all of these questions, I would say that creativity is all about being inspired by nature, inspired by others, inspired by art, or whatever. I would say that creativity thrives in places where people with different backgrounds share together in a benevolent context, basically just like we did during the International Youth Think Tank Conference back in 2019. So I believe this is what universities should aim at providing researchers with.
Excellent. That's Philippine, and so much energy. And the first question, am I creative? And I think just the energy told us that Philippine is definitely a creative person. But what are your reactions on what you heard?
Yeah, I think that was an amazing comment. And I think all Philippine said is creativity. And there are so many aspects to creativity. And it's traditionally, I thought it was when you get together and you share things and you get inspired by others. But we are so different. Imagining, thinking about something in your mind, starting to read, think about it more, perhaps discuss with someone, and then making it, and then perhaps not showing it to anyone. But and then eventually you have something which is quite unique. But I think when you present it to others and get input, then things can happen, and it's. So I think one can be quite introvert and very creative, and I think you can be very extrovert and very creative also. And in teams, my experience is that we need all of what Philippine said, and it's that's important to consider when you build teams. And that's also positive, because then everyone is welcome. So one can always, if you're interested in something, you will always have the chance of finding your way of doing it, if you get good mentorship, I think.
And I would, by what you say, could we also assume that during the pandemic, some of the more introverts have really had a possibility to play at the same playing field?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think this is. I think I am a bit extrovert, and I think I've suffered. I think I didn't, and also a bit narcissistic. That's not a good thing to say, but I think I've lost this stimulation that you get by traveling in, presenting something, getting response and meeting people, and then leaving. But I think I've learned something about myself from this also, which perhaps wasn't that. Perhaps I shouldn't have learned that. Anyhow, I definitely think that introvert people have gotten the chance to, and also it's sometimes easier to meet over screen. And many of the big research organizations have tried to make use of this time and the digital platforms, and organized meet and greet, speed dating events with sometimes with the really stars in the field, people you would never get to reach out to. and those things those we really should try to make use of for the future.
What about in RISE, Pia? Have you also seen this, that new people have taken a step forward?
Yes, I would say so, and I totally agree with Henrik that you have different personalities, and then different fora suits you better depending on what kind of personality you are. But I think there's something with creativity as well regarding to be curious about wanting to learn more and to sort of go into areas where you haven't been before. But I think that what this period has also shown us is that you have to sort of have blended ways of meeting, so that you can get so that you have situations that in the long run will suit everybody, so that you really can get everybody to have the possibility to be creative and be the best they are. And I think that is something that we shouldn't lose that now when we go into a new normal, so that we get back to the old ways of doing things, because then I think we'll lose a lot of creativity, and we will also lose some of the persons that have found their new arenas now for being creative. So I think we really have to be careful and reflect of the new things that we've learned regarding this.
And at our last global talks, we had members of the cultural sector attending, and we heard from Michael Felenius, who is the CEO of Film Invest, that he said, well, meeting each other physically is a necessity for creativity. And then he continued to discuss that and said that global film production is his area of business, global film production basically ceased to exist during the pandemic. But in Sweden, among other things, thanks to Film Invest and having social distance and applying the regulations and still trying to invite people to the labs, but in his case to the film scene, was a mean to let things go on. So what you show is that you have found ways to comply with the situation. But what about the future for the physical meeting place? Is that still important? And what will it be like?
If I start, Pia, I think it will be very important. And especially now when teams are getting bigger and bigger. Now I always think about my research field, but it's clear that the groups are getting larger. We are much more multidisciplinary. Having some kind of unifying meeting place, I think that is important. I think we can still work more from home if one would like to do that, and don't have to be in a lab. We can still collaborate globally without always having the physical meetings, but doing remote meetings. But this is completely non-scientific now, but I would like to gather the team once a week. Involving a social hour and some lecture. That could be invited lecturers that Zoom in or join by VC, and but still being able to at least once a week get the team together, the core team. And that could be a large core team, and that would also, but then we would need to build places where, in my case, there has to be labs, but there should also be this type of common meeting place where one could have larger gatherings and good technical support to do high quality video conferencing with good quality on the image, on screens and sound and all those things.
And for you, Pia, will you go back to the offices? Will you force people back to the offices? What will happen in RISE?
We have looked at, we have had a work going on now for almost a year regarding RISE Future Workplace. And we've asked our employees, how do you want to work when we go back to new normal? And they have said, those that have the possibility, I would say, of course, they say that I would probably like to work from home 2 to 3 days a week. So we are really planning for that now. And we also had did some work regarding offices at home. So we had a small amount of money where you could sort of buy things if you were working from home. But I agree with Henrik that I think that in the long run, in order to build strong teams, you have to meet sometime in real life, because otherwise you need the relations in order to sort of be creative in the long run, I would say. And I also had a lesson learned that is quite interesting, that says something about when things happen. If you have a meeting in real life and you meet in a conference room, then you have these small talks before the meeting, in the coffee breaks and so forth. And if you have a meeting on a digital platform, and you are like 10 to 15, or if you have, we have had after works and things like that in the evenings, sort of being social, not just meeting to talk about work and so forth. And then I realized, after having that for 2 times in my management team, and I realized that we are all in the same meeting the whole time. There's only one conversation going on. And I think that is not good for creativity, because sometimes you sort of need to get together in a small team to talk about things. And it's not, if you sort of start to do that and you say, we have to have a small meeting by our own now, so we log out and put up a separate meeting. People would probably think, what are they going to discuss if they don't want to discuss it together with all of us? So then the third, this type of event that we had, we are 10 in the management team. Then I actually had, because you can random small meetings. So then we had this dinner. I random out people for 10 minutes and said, so that they could come together, three in each of these, to talk and then come back, to try to have something as similar as if you had been in the same room. But I think it's really different. So I think that these in real life meetings, you have to have them. We will never be able to have them once a week, as Henrik says, because we are so distributed in our organization. But we will have them more than we have had now, definitely. And you have to be, we will be more structured in the way we meet in the future. The new normal. So we will sort of set a structure. How often will we meet in real life? How will we set up those meetings in order to get a good meetings? And how often will we have remote meetings? And how will they be set up? What type of questions will we discuss when we meet on a digital platform? What type of discussions, and how should we run those meetings when we really meet in real life? Should we meet for a longer time, for example, in order to sort of have, because you can't just sit down in a meeting in real life and say, okay, now we should be creative for 5 minutes or 10 minutes here, and then we go back again. I mean, you need time.
And what we're seeing, and I think that's what both of you are saying as well, what we are seeing from Global Business Gate's point of view when looking into the meeting place, the workplace of the future, is also that it's so good to already now think about what it will look like, but it's impossible to judge what it will look like 2-3 years from now, because as you said in the beginning, Pia, when we have people, one thing is the senior people who can definitely continue working part-time from home, but when we have new people coming in and they need the networks, so they also actually need the more senior people in the workplace, and the senior people probably need the younger people to inspire them as well, or challenge them. So it's important to discuss, but too early to judge. And that said, we have a second student. We have Ergis Brockhuis, who is a law student in Belgium. He is also a youth fellow in the International Youth Think Tank, and he is the founder of the democratic movement My Utopia. Ergis has experience and knowledge in European democracy, fundamental rights, and the involvement of young people in policy making. So now we will listen to what he has to share with us.
Hi there, I am Ergis from Belgium, and I am a youth fellow at the International Youth Think Tank. As a university student, I have the unique opportunity to have access to a lot of knowledge on different subjects, such as law, economy, psychology, politics, etc. The educational system learns us young people how to use knowledge, but it doesn't learn us how to share knowledge with other people that don't have the same access to knowledge as us students. For example, people from vulnerable communities. I think that in times of disinformation, it could be of help to encourage young students to get on the streets, in pubs, to share knowledge with different people and communities so we can all benefit from the achievements of the human intellect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ergis. So, yet another student with good comments. So, who is responsible for the sharing of knowledge? Do we have means to do that, or is it something that, as Ergis says, young people should move out on the streets and share, make sure to share knowledge, or is it the universities who should teach young people to also share knowledge?
The best thing to learn something is to teach about it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a I've never thought about it before this. It could be a quite good exercise to incorporate in the curricula for university courses that a part of the exam is to tell people about the topic. I think it's a brilliant idea here, actually. One could also think about, if we again think more globally, perhaps we should try to look at least the Swedish universities and ask them to form alliances with universities in other parts of the world where some of these courses are not accessible, and then students could, as an exam work, give the courses they just took, but of course supervised. So I think this is a student initiative, and it sounds like Ergil is organizing something. I suspect he does. That might involve then going out into pubs or open areas and tell about something, tell the public sort of about something. But perhaps one could at the universities make this a part of the exam. That could be an exciting thing. Just a thought.
Something is happening here. Great. While we were watching the video, I had a question here from our audience, and asking the question: has the Swedish way of handling the pandemic positioned your business differently in the eyes of the world? And in that case, how?
In my case, it definitely has. We have always, in the meetings we have had, people have been extremely curious about the Swedish way.
Yeah.
And surprised that I have been in the lab. I think this has been, looking at how different countries have handled this pandemic has been extremely interesting. And I think it has proven that working in the workspace, I return to my lab, we have had individual cases, but no clusters. It is possible with this dreadful virus to actually work together in a responsible way and not get big outbreaks. We have remained open, and we have been able to continue to deliver in the space. We are experts, and we have also helped out a little bit with some of the COVID side effects on the brain with biomarker analysis. But I must say, I've been a little bit proud of this way of work, the possibility we have been given to work like this. Of course, perhaps, I mean, the numbers are a little bit disturbing, I have to admit, but I think this, in the long run, has been good.
And you, Pia, do you?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's been there can be many things said, but if you focus on what it has been, what it has meant for RISE and our organization, I think it was a good balance between having a total lockdown that I can see that many of my colleagues have had in RTOs all around Europe. That has been very different because they really haven't been able almost to go out at all, even though they have had quite a lot of the pandemic, more than in Sweden actually in some countries. And I would say that also the way of sort of involving researchers in trying to get solutions. I mean, we have also been participating in that. We made quality assurance of protective equipment in the beginning. We have also been working with quality assurance of antibodies to see if they are on different type of virus tests as well. So there has been something, and I think it has also created collaboration between different type of organizations as well. I think some of the universities have been doing a lot of work regarding both research, but very, very, very hands-on as well. That normally research organizations don't do in that way, where they try to find solutions very fast. So I think it has really, I think we have proven to be a country that really can mobilize together as well. So in that sense, it has been good.
So I think it's time runs very, very fast when you are in interesting discussions. So I think we are about to round off for today, and we hope that this discussion will be going on in different forums, and that this has been a good input to other discussions on creativity in the new normal. And as you know, attending remotely, the subject of creativity will always be high on our agenda in Global Business Gate, as that is really what we want to drive and to create. And we have for sure had extreme challenges the latest year plus, but we have learned. And I think we have heard today that there are a lot of positives, a lot of positive learnings, even if we hear both Pia and Henrik saying that we long for the new normal, we long for meeting again, we long for traveling and meet up again, but we will do it with other perspectives. So today we are so grateful to have had you here and to share your experience with us. Thank you also to our students, and especially to Pia and Henrik, and good luck with your business. As always, as a small token, and we want to contribute to our close neighborhood, so we have donated a small amount of money to the social charity Räddningsmissionen as a thank you to you here. And finally, thank you to all of you watching us today, and don't forget that you can watch this edition or previous editions again and again, and feel free to send us your feedback. We can promise that we will be back in the autumn, and until then, have a great summer and stay safe. Thank you.